Hello, guys. Thanks for tuning in for another episode of Regan's Rugby Strength and Conditioning. Got a cool guest for you today. We actually met because we're in like a kind of partnership group from a guy called Rich Wellington who helps us with sort of personal and business development. And it took a few months for me to look at the photos in the back of his video. And he was a wheelchair rugby athlete. He played national level. He was also a fitness coach for national teams. He's also been to 2 Paralympics. He's got a podcast show. We spoke for an hour last week trying to set this up, so I'm sure we can blab about a lot of things. So cheers for your time, James. How are you doing?
I'm very well, Regan. I hope you're well as well.
I am doing good. What's up? We just said that we had bank holiday weekend here. Pretty standard weekend doing nothing, right? Nothing special.
Not really. Monday, I guess I couldn't have the extra 4 days. I was all right with 3. 4 was pushing it.
Yeah.
So I did a little bit of work yesterday, more from the admin side of things. So the boring stuff when it comes to any business, it has to be done.
And then so we've chatted a bit before, but I really don't know too much about your timetable, what you do. So why don't you tell, or me as well, but give these guys a little bit of intro on what James does day to day for work, free time, all that jazz.
Oh, free time is virtually non-existent, but that's only because of COVID.
Okay.
Well, obviously you being outside the UK, you know what it was like. Paralympics, I won't call it Paralympics. Say disabled sport is pretty much non-existent, except at the elite level. So I have not done any team sport for over a year. And obviously I was okay with that at first, but when you see the likes of the Six Nations, the Premiership, you name whatever league happening, it gets very annoying because it's like, well, why can you do it and I can't? And the only difference being you have all your limbs. So I try not to get into that space too much because it gets very, very, very frustrating, and I don't want to go into that kind of animosity. So what does my day-to-day life look like from a business perspective? It depends on the week. Today, because we were talking about bank holiday, I took today off from a business perspective as well. So today is just going to be your podcast. I was interviewed 2 hours ago by a podcast in Australia, and I got my one-to-one with Rich this afternoon. So it's very much
busy day
my
off,
chance to be exuberant and be very much like, the Australians or the Americans, swag. It's all about me today. But most of the days is probably no different than yours. It will be content creation. Obviously James is mixed race, not like Greg, who's black. I turn up most of the time on time, and I can't just rock up and do it, off, one of these things of it's off the cuff. Sometimes I can, and sometimes I'll be more structured like the rest of you. So me, I'm a mixed bag. So depending on probably my I won't say state of mind, my emotional thing towards what's ever happened, you'll probably see that as more you work alongside me. So Danny can read me like a book, because he'll be like, well, James is not in one camp or the other. He's kind of smack bang in the middle of most things. So I think Rich said a lot of this were logical, and he put me into that. Whereas I think he labeled 3 of them as very much. So it depends on the circumstance. Sometimes I get very emotional, and sometimes I don't. I get very logical. So when the logic happens, it's very easy. It's like, oh no, okay, we'll move on to the next person. Yes, well, that's a surprise, but that's very much of a confidence boost.
And just so on listening, he's mentioning a lot of people from our sort of partnership. It's not like any rugby people you should know. And this is the group that we talk to. It's helping sort of bring ourselves up and obviously our businesses as well. And then so I think last time they said that you are doing some work with the Ireland team. And how do you split between like coaching someone in person and maybe coaching some online clients? Where does that split for you, or does it depend on competitions or?
For that role as a consultancy, it's a bit of it's going to be a hybrid model because it's been predominantly online because of the circumstances of COVID. But I have a training weekend with them at the end of May. So I'm just trying to do all the logistics for me as a business as well. I potentially need to be in one part of the country on a few days, and I don't know if you're coming over or not. And then obviously one day I have to be there because as a client. So it's just looking at the nitty gritty of how's it going to affect me physically and emotionally, and how many days off am I going to have to take afterwards. So it's very much, it's online at the moment, and it's trying to see how those individuals tick, because like I said, it's not a Paralympic sport. So this is maybe where I disagree with the rest of the coaching staff. I don't want to give them a break because it's supposed to be a national team. Thus should be a cut above the rest. Yes, I get that we've never been in this situation before, but you're trying to get ready for a national competition where there's going to be no, but the other teams aren't going to hold back. If you've took your foot off the gas, that's your fault. So it's trying to get that point across. Obviously, they thought there was no problem. There was, but I think we've sorted that out. But obviously, theirs is the 5-year plan. I want it year one of because I've played for one of the teams they're going to face. It took years. I'd like to be that you've got somebody inside that who's been in that other camp. Here you go. Here's all the information. Hit the ground running, and then go from there. But I guess because of being in a position of mediocrity, or everywhere they look, media outlets, the governments, etc., of being a little bit nincompoofs, I guess they give themselves a bit of lenient. Whereas I'm thinking, you're in a sporting environment. There's a higher standard. If you don't pull yourself up by the bootstraps, we'll remind you maybe once, maybe twice, but the sure as hell shouldn't be a third time, because ultimately we'll kind of show you the door.
But there's a national championship at the end of May, and they're
beginning of June, but it's the only training they're going to get together in person is end of May. So I'm thinking, well, you need to take on like self accountability as an athlete, that you need to be in the best physical shape you are, that if I make you do something on that day, you physically are capable of doing it. Because I don't know your physical limitations. But that's probably the difference between those that win Olympic gold medals and the rest. They're willing to push themselves beyond what people deem as physically capable. They're willing to go into that darkness, I'll put it as, red line in it longer than anybody else. I guess because a lot of them haven't been in that position. I'll generalize because I haven't spoken to all of them, but a lot of things were not difficult. As like complete a form, take 5 minutes. So it'd be like, oh, I've got work. Well, you obviously don't want to compete then, do you? Really?
Well, that's the excuses you get.
Well, that's some of the excuses that are like for team meetings. Oh, I've got work.
Really?
Like once a week. You don't have to be there for the entirety of the call. And so they bend over backwards for the players. So I probably would have done it slightly differently. And I think Rich has made that clear to most of us. No, it's what suits you. If that person can't do it, you'll tweak it a little bit, but these are the times I've got. But I think that's the difference of, I think they want it to be slow. I want it to be rapid. I want the team to compete. I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight, but the mentality, I would like it to change. Because
How long is the training camp? Because you can't really do fitness in fucking 2 days, can you?
we got one day. They got one day,
Yeah.
5-hour session. So it's going to be brutal anyway. And the head coach was asking me, well, what can we do? So it's like to do like Tabata and things like that. It's like, well, if the person's not fit enough to do it, mentally you'll switch off and you'll back off. So the first thing I'll probably say on that day is, if physically you can't do it, that's one thing. Mentally back off, that's on you. I can't make you do it, because physically you need to want to bust a gut. Because people do ask me, well, why did you do the Paralympics? It was a choice. I wanted to do it. It was a goal of mine. It was, well, it's probably an extreme. It was everything I lived and breathed it every single day. Not throughout the career, but the early beginnings of it. That was everything that I talked about was sport. Obviously, I was in education still, but people would get sick and tired of me talking sometimes. Oh, it's always sport, nothing else. Yeah, but look where it got me.
Yeah. Let's go with that. So what sport was it in the Paralympics? Was it the rugby? Because I know you play basketball as well.
No, I did 2 sports at Paralympic level, and then the third obviously was what started my career. So I competed in the Paralympics in Beijing in 2008, which seems like a long time ago now.
Wow, that's not long. I'm looking at my calendar.
And then obviously I had the massive amount of privilege to be competing at home games in London in 2012 in volleyball, but I started my career as a swimmer.
In volleyball? Swimming, what stroke?
The one I was selected for the national team was breaststroke, but I swam every discipline.
Yeah.
I definitely wasn't a backstroke. I hate a backstroke.
Because we've that's 4 sports now. We've spoken for a bit. Is there a lot of interlink between sort of disability sports, or are you just a multitasking guru? Not to,
you want me to say
the
bad way of looking at it? The jack of all trades. I think the raw talent must be there, because to be so good to make 2 performance teams. I think what I downplay, probably to my discredit a lot, is the support I've always had. I've always had a supportive network behind me. So any little nuance, any problems, I could either talk it out, be it any political battles, I'd have that sorted. I wouldn't have to deal with it. And well, my performance director is more like an uncle. I don't care what you want, James, you will have it. So be it, it was, I think, the first weekend in rowing, and had an indoor competition the day before, and then was going to be on the water the next day to compete. And he asked me, oh, do you want physio? I was like, I don't need physio. I'm not asking you, I'm telling you.
What, to get physio before
Yeah, as in like a more not necessarily physio, but a sport massage, like I'm rubbed down to get all the crap out of the body and be as close to 100% the next day. So I think that's something that stayed with me. I'm not telling my clients what to do. I won't have you do something I wouldn't do to myself. So coming back to the rugby one of the Tabata stuff, it's like, well, I'm gonna ask the ones that obviously come on the calls. What are you doing right now vis-a-vis training? One was doing like 25 miles minimum. It's like, your endurance is fine. You'll be all right. Let's touch. I said the good and the bad. Let's touch on the bad side of things. We'll look at the stuff that's gonna hurt come that day. Of you can do Tabata stuff, as you know, with weights, circuit training. You don't need a coach. You just need probably a resiliency to keep going. And when it hurts, obviously you stop.
How would you structure a session? Because I know you said there's people with different maybe possible limbs gone, or there's even able-bodied guys allowed in your team. I think you said there's 2 in a team. So what if you rock up, like, I'm just making things up. Is it a session sitting down in a chair, or do you rock up and do, you can do that, you can't do that? Like, how does it go from, this is the plan? Oh, I guess you talk to them every week, but I'm going to plan this fitness session to fuck up these guys, to test them. Oh, wait, these 4 people can't do it. Does that happen, or do you have to do that?
No, because that's why I bring the chair into it, because it's the leveler. Because ultimately, that's what they're going to compete in. That's why the coach asked me as well. I've got this, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. Can it be done over 40 minutes, 40-meter sprints? So I wrote back, is the chair going backwards? Is it going forwards? Because it make a massive difference of same with if you're running. If you're jogging backwards, you can't go full pelt because you're going to fall over. So kind of going into more detail, as it's not just a case of, this is pretty much brainwashing. It shows Richard's influence of, chucking some pasta on the wall and it's sticking. Whereas I think that's maybe his intention of, well, can we do this? Can we do this? Well, depends on ultimately the person's mindset. Are they willing to fuck themselves over? If the answer is no, obviously we've got to pretty much, the issue is pretty deep. It's like, well, why are you coming for national selection if you're not willing to?
Who doesn't expect that? Any national team.
Well, that's that. What some people are easy. They're telltale. They haven't got a poker face. So if they're not trying, you can tell. It's like, well, okay, you're taking the piss here. It's like, are you gonna at least try? But obviously, answer your question, yes, that's where speaking to the individual is paramount. Because if you tell me that X, Y, Z, I can't do this, that's up to me as a coach to tweak it. Okay, you have certain leniencies of, I don't know, you're not going to do as many rounds of the 40-minute sprints. It's trying to remember what I did as an athlete in that same setup with the Welsh team. But obviously, when you're trying to go balls out, you don't remember the stuff,
exactly.
because it's like, well, I'm going to much be breathing out my ass. I need to kind of switch off and kind of go primal here and just do the best I can. So I think it was a type of a suicide, which I hated in basketball, and we don't do it as much. But our training sessions are conditioning, but we play as if it's a game. So we will do or we did in the basketball environment, warm up, that's it, and then the rest of the training session was game related. So it was full on. So when we came into games, we played our way. So we're trying to run a team out the gym. So if you're struggling come the end of the game, okay, we'll take it up another level on purpose. So it's trying to find that. So it's not as easy, because we've not been able to be able to get to each other, say maybe once a month for the last 6 months, which would have helped.
That's usual. Is that usual? Sorry, once a month.
Yeah. So and obviously the sports haven't been training as individuals, but I think most of the national teams are in the same boat. So, however, one of the teams that somebody said is not in that competition. So it's like, well, that's irrelevant. They're not training. The English team wasn't training. Well, they're not in the Celtic nations. Wales is training, and I know they have been, because they could have been lying with social media, but they've been training since the beginning of the year. Well, in theory, they'll be 3 months ahead of you and Scotland. And obviously Scotland are pretty much in the same boat. Why, I don't know. But a lot of it comes down to who's got the power of persuasion. So I guess whoever wrote Wales's letter was very convincing as to why they should have elite status to go back to training. Ireland, unfortunately, most of the team is in England, so it's a bit more difficult because the Irish government can't really turn around to Boris and say, well, they need dispensation. It's like, well, it becomes very mishmash and very difficult. Whereas Scotland, who knows, maybe they're not right. They've not hit the right buttons. So that'd be the team I would probably be behind to knock off. It's like, in theory, they're in the same position. They haven't trained as a unit. It's just executing and how they've scheduled the tournament. Scotland's done it weird way around of I would have probably played Ireland first, because normally Ireland's bottom of the pack, and they've done it the other pick Wales, so they must be very, very confident or very, very naive. So I don't know. If it's naive, that's good, because it'll come down to points difference who's finishes. I think Wales on paper should win it because they've won the last 4.
Is it a UK league, I suppose?
Pretty much, just with the exception of England.
So they should the Celtic League, yeah.
So they should win it, and I've won it. The coaches was in the team that last time Ireland won it. So we come in it with a pretty good record. I've never lost one. I've only competed in one, and obviously, I think he's beaten me in playing. I think when we've gone head to head, Ireland's beaten Wales when he played me. But obviously he wanted the players to picture themselves with the trophy. I've got a picture with that, so I can pretty much put it in your face. It's like, well, I've won the tournament and we walked it.
When was that? What year was that?
2016. And I think we beat Ireland by 100 points.
100, the same scoring as rugby, 5-2. Oh, there's no kicks, obviously.
Yeah, there's kicks. There's still
is
kicks.
that? Sorry.
It's the more a punt, with the fist.
Oh, okay.
But obviously the point. No, slightly different. 4 and 2 would it be in league?
Oh yeah, it's league, because we said this last week. There's 3 types of wheelchair version rugby, right? League, murder ball, which is the common, the Olympic
that's
sport,
the one.
and one more.
Sevens.
And sevens.
So sevens. I can't get my head around it. I think it's more like dodgems, because a tackle will consist of 2 players tackling them. Otherwise, if there's only one, it's not a tackle. Whereas league, if there's contact and if the tag comes off, it's a tackle. But I was obviously going to say to players, because I used to do it deliberately, I've just knocked the chair over and that counts.
Because murder ball videos that someone like me might see, they kind of make it look like it is just an absolute, but the hitting chairs is not.
Well, it's a lot heavier as well. They're about, murder ball chair would be about at least 10-15 kilos, and a normal league or union one would be about a quarter of that. No, not at least a third of that, if not more.
But the way you technically tackle is like tag. You pull a tag off the shoulder. Yeah, so
like tag rugby. It's more like kids rugby.
But you can hit them. It's not meant to, but you do, basically, right?
Well, you do. Well,
you do. We're talking about
you do, because it's using whatever you've got at your disposal. I used to play out in the wing, so the touchline was my friend. So if you want to go out that far, I'm just going to nudge you over the sideline. It's for you to keep it's like, like a person's boot. If you want to go that close to the touchline, I'll make sure you touch the whitewash. thus you've
many
gone over
players
the
are there
line.
then? I thought because sevens, how many players are on a full game?
In wheelchair sevens.
No, not sevens, in the normal game or in a league that you played.
Rugby league is able-body's 13 on the field, and in wheelchair it's 5.
Oh, I thought it was
one time.
Okay. I thought sevens would be less.
No, so it's not that. It comes down to communication a lot of times. Of when somebody's been beaten a lot, I used to jump in, and then I'd be left out to dry because I'm not marking my winger, and then they score. It's like, well, no point shouting at me. You've missed so many tackles. I thought they were going to beat you. So that person's got the confidence to go at you. I'm helping you out. I stopped doing that after a while because it's like, well, if you're beaten, you're not communicating. Thus, I've got an advantage. The wing is easier because you've got the touch line as your ally. It's like I can make. I used to do it deliberately, make people fumble the ball into the post and all sorts.
Can you smack it out as well?
No, you can't knock it out of the hands, but you can make the collision more aggressive. Thus, the grounding is more difficult. So there's loads of pictures of me deliberately not making no attempt for the tag. The rules have changed, I think, because they want it to be fair. One of the best players in the wheelchair game did exactly the same thing to me. He made sure I was all right afterwards, after I'd scored. So because the referee said, well, if you hadn't scored, I'd have given a penalty try, because it was like no intent for the tag whatsoever. It was like pretty much carnage. And I played him in basketball as well. He had no malintent to hurt me. It was making sure that I might pull out and I'd think twice to ground it. Whereas I was like, I pretty much spent my time in basketball and training. People knock me out on purpose. It's like, well, the floor doesn't hurt to some degree. It depends where you play in some of these halls. I scored, and then I think the adrenaline kicks in. So we scored. Oh well. I did back chat to what the same referee a season or two prior, because I got horse collared.
Someone yanking like that.
Yeah. Missed the tag completely, got hold of the jersey, and I went fuming. And he said, "Oh, James, do you want the try or do you want the penalty?" I didn't realize we scored because I'd given the pass away and somebody'd missed. They'd kind of gone from here, slipped off the shoulder and kind of gone yank. It's like, didn't realize. So I went into like rage mode for no reason. And I still keep in touch with it's the assistant coach's dad, so I still keep in touch. So I think it keeps it real. It's like, I'm in charge. What you want to do? You can have the penalty, but obviously you wouldn't turn down the 4 points. Because I think the team would be pretty annoyed. It's like, you're not captain, but you're turning down 2 points.
And it's a full 80-minute match, isn't it? I didn't realize it was so long.
Yeah. So depending on some of the structures, most of the knockouts would be 8. I think they've brought it down a little bit because obviously they haven't played for a year. But a 80-minute rugby league game is a lot easier than a 40-minute basketball game. And why I say that is I came out of retirement back in, do play that game 2019 as a favor for one of the Welsh players who lives in England, and they were playing up in Leeds. So he's like, "Oh, who do I know who's up north who's not registered with any clubs?" So obviously he I think sent me a Facebook message. I was like, "Well, how desperate do you need me to play?" And it was that I was the 6th player, so it's didn't need me to play. But if anything went wrong with the chairs, you don't want to be playing 4 against 5 because they didn't know how good Leeds were and pretty much walked it. And for the final, obviously it clashed. I obviously put basketball more important because I think we were having a very important league game. So I was like, well, I can't go to this because this is more important to me. And they ended up winning the competition. And he sent me in the post the winning medal. I was like, oh, I didn't have to do it. So I was very flabbergasted as well. I've played one knockout game for you and you sent me one of the winners medal. So I was very appreciative and I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I'm doing you a favor. And obviously I'd never beaten Leeds as well. So it was quite nice to beat Leeds Rhinos. And
is it the same clubs then? Sorry to interrupt. Same club.
For league, pretty much. So you have, in terms of like league, you got Leeds Rhinos. St Helens has got a wheelchair side. Warrington has got a wheelchair side. Wigan technically does, but it's called something else. Hull, one. This is where it gets weird. It's one club, but obviously in the running game there's two. So one side of the it must be hard for the ones that support the other club because they got to play in the club of the arch rivals.
What do you mean? They got two.
Well, there's in league there's Hull FC.
Yeah.
You're playing white and black, and they said red, and then you've got the one that's over the river, Hull Kingston Rovers, playing red and white.
I've heard of both of those. Yeah.
And in the wheelchair game, it's Hull FC, so it's one club for the whole city. So that must be pretty brutal. If you
play with your rivals,
playing for the arch rivals. I couldn't do it because somebody asked me, "Oh, could you play amputee football?" I was like, "No," because one of the teams up here is Manchester City, and I hate them. And Everton wouldn't be too much because that's the club of my family down the years. If it was Liverpool, it'd be a different story. I'd probably wear a Manchester United top underneath on purpose. But City's too far. It's too far to wear that. Even if they were successful, it's one of those morals versus trophies. It'd be difficult. But pretty much to answer your question, Regan, I think pretty much most of them is like an inclusive side of they've made their intention to be in every aspect of the game. Women, men, able-bodied. What's the other one? There's one that's an inclusive rugby. That's it's more the running game. It's PDRL, I think it is. And based on your disability is how you're tackled. So if you're amputee, it's touch. If you're something else and it's physical, it's proper tackle. And I've heard an old teammate, he did it and somebody tackled him and they weren't supposed to. So he took it personally and he tackled the other person and they weren't supposed to be tackled. Like, well, it was only training. It's like, come on, dude. It's like he did it by accident. It's probably very instinctive. If you've come from the game where it's full contact, these little nuances go out the window. Of when I first signed for North Wales Crusaders, I think about 7 years ago, I was learning the rules as I went on. So a lot of things that were allowed back then aren't anymore. So I got pinged in that. Obviously, the one I came out of retirement because it's like you can't be stationary and hold your arm above your head because nobody can actually pull the tag. It's like, well, they can, but they're making no attempt.
Well, you can't hold
It'd be quite hard because it's back here, but you can still get it.
It's
not as if I'm doing this. I'm making because a lot of players who I played against down the years, they would do this, so you got no chance of getting it. So they outlawed it, and obviously I was getting pinged for it. It's like, well, I've been out of the game for a while, and we were winning, so it was okay. So, and I think I was trying too hard that day to impress a little bit because, like, well,
come out of retirement.
Well, it was a little bit because I'd left the game because I didn't really enjoy it. Training was too easy.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were slacking on. No, because when you're going backwards, it's pretty much coasting. And the only time you'll see it in basketball is a cool down. That's it. If you're going backwards, you see a player do it in a game. Thank you very much. I'm gonna go a little bit. I'll push a bit harder, and you hit me. It's a foul. So it's a lot of the newbies you'll see do it. It's like, why? You do realize going backwards is slower, and you might actually fall out backwards. So
they're chasing the ball going backwards on the chair.
Well, you wouldn't be able to keep up because
obviously
it's full momentum. So you're taught to swivel and not anticipate. You make the offensive player go where you want him to go, and you take the shortest route. And then whether or not they bottle it, it's up to them. So you're gonna go as far to the line as you can without actually causing a foul. And
normal rugby or any sport.
I'd get criticized loads in training basketball. Why have you pulled out? Why didn't you take the contact? Because I don't want to get hurt. And once I've got out that mindset, be it the season before lockdown and the one before that, I was getting loads of people having to foul me because I was a nuisance. And my coach was very happy about that. It's like, now you're taking your game to the next level. You're a threat with and without the ball. So you're very much a nuisance that people, I think one game, I think sometimes there's like 3 people on me and I don't even have the, it's like, are you stupid or something? You've just made you're putting yourself at a disadvantage.
Is it very close knit? Everyone knows everyone.
Within the league, yeah, it's we're talking a few hundred people, but because you play people year in year out, doesn't matter what division, you're always coming across. And same with the ones who are juniors, they've come up with the players, so they're playing them 2-3 times a year, be it league, junior league, and what's the other one? Regional.
But when
they'll be playing each other constantly. And rugby league is probably similar because they haven't got the player pool yet. They haven't made it, for whatever reason, they haven't made it sexy. Basketball's got an advantage because it's one of the original Paralympic sports, and it's seen as one of the blue ribbon events, and GB is good at it, so it helps. And I've always loved basketball, even when I was at school. So it's like, well, and obviously if we go rewind back to the beginning, if I'd have known about wheelchair basketball when I started my career, I'd have taken the completely different path. I don't know if I'd have made it to the Paralympics, but I'd have loved what I was doing.
Oh, because you went to Paralympics for swimming and something else?
Rowing and volleyball.
Got that wrong. Yeah, rowing and volleyball. Wicked, man. What a bloody story. Dipping in and out of loads of sports as well. Cool. What was one of the coolest parts about the Olympics? Coolest
parts,
or going or attending or you witnessed, like this is high level stuff.
Probably the food.
Yeah.
Beijing, why I say the food, this will probably shock people, it's free.
Free for athletes?
So
I thought it would. No, I thought it'd be in the
no,
package.
but as in because they've got a McDonald's inside it and they do have cash registers, but they kind of, I guess they must void the receipt. So it's like you've got to completely switch your brain off when you leave. It's like, wow, next time I go into a shop, I can't walk out with this product.
Oh, okay. Oh, you mean you were being gifted things?
Well, not gifted in terms of well, you get loads of I'm annoying myself. I left it on a train station, so I lost it. So it was a Powerade bottle from with the Olympic decal. So it's pretty much limited edition. So you get little freebies here, obviously to obviously promote their product, but you get little things of the keepsakes, and it's trying to get these things home is sometimes challenging. So I think I went China. Well, I took 2 suitcases out, and I think they were slightly bigger. London, I came back with more than I took because you got your duvet to keep.
Yeah.
With all the logos of the sports. It's summer weight was. It's not that warm in the winter. So I've still got that. And then obviously you get little sentimental things of where you finished. China's on Sanskrit, so or Chinese equivalent. So that's pretty much
cool.
An heirloom for down the years.
It's 10-2. Wow.
What do we get for London? Obviously, the kit is very well. London, everybody wanted the GB kit because it was designer stuff as well. So it's like, well, nope, can't get. And the one that they wanted, everybody wanted, was the medal one, and it's in the contract. We can't give it away, even if we wanted to. You have to keep it for another 2 years after the games for any press related things that you might have to do. More like if you medaled, obviously that would be the case. So you have to kind of say, I know you want it, but I can't give it to you. So yeah, so little things like that of little written in binding agreements of you've got to remember, oh no, I can't give it to you no matter how much I want a kit swap. So the Americans, it'd be nice because obviously they got Ralph Lauren and things like that, so it's kind of nice.
I don't know that.
Ours being Stella McCartney, but theirs is, you see the polo jockey on it. Everybody knows what label that is. And then obviously the lounge stuff is Nike. But no, I think probably the free stash overall, but it reminds you of the hard work you putting into it. Of yes, I gift people stuff, but they're very appreciative. It's like, well, you had to probably do. They've never said it, but blood, sweat, and tears to get something. And yeah, it's true, but I come back to it was a choice. I didn't have to do that. I could have chosen to, well, as one of my family members like to remind me, go get a real job, work 9 to 5. It's like, no, thank you.
Fuck that for life.
I want to go in this direction. And obviously it's very humbling to people when they read it. It's like, well, it's only because I didn't agree. I listened to what they said, but I just didn't agree. That wasn't my path. And well, they also had that conversation with me last year. Would you do it all again? I was like, yeah, in a heartbeat. Not make the same mistakes. That's the only aspect I would change. I wouldn't do this. I wouldn't do some of the things that I chose to do the first time around. I'd do something different. I wouldn't say they were all mistakes, but I would choose to do. If I chose A, I'd do B, and if I chose B, I'd do A. And it's a no-brainer. It was my dream of wanting to do. I didn't want to do it for anybody else. I know my mom wanted to be going into Olympic equestrian and Olympic equestrianism. And I'd like to think that she was able to fulfill some of that through me, but she never pushed me to do. You must do sport. Of the only thing I require of you is you give it your all. So that's probably why I'm a stickler for, you're either in it all the way or don't bother at all. And obviously I've reminded that a lot of my career, because I don't want to end on a sour note, but I'd rather do just enough than push all the way and then not succeed. But I think obviously I do the opposite, and I bring them both together now. I'll do 100%, and then if it's a failure, I'll analyze it. So I'll use probably the anecdote of the two. So that's probably why it irritates me when people look. I'm going to give him a little bit of leniency. Why? They're choosing to want to be up for selection. That's scrutiny. That's the difference between being selected. They've got a player pool to choose from, so they could be harsh. I think they're not, because obviously the time frame, but I think the competition as a whole, they've opened it up. There's unlimited substitution and things like that. So that's going to suit us because we haven't got a bigger squad. So that's because league normally, I think you only get the running game. I think it's 10 interchanges in a match, so you've got to use them wisely. Obviously, unions move more difficult because you only get one.
Really?
For each. Well, as in the running game, get one unless it's a blood substitution.
Sorry, yeah. So you meant one reserve, one.
Well, I did see somewhere else. Nigel Owen once. Now he's retired. He's like, what should we get rid of from Union? The unlimited, the massive big benches.
Get rid of them.
Not completely, but make it like it's not ridiculous that it's like completely. You change the whole front row and then it goes to pot.
What is it? 7 subs now? I don't know. 8. No, it's 8. No, 7. 16 to 23. 22.
Yeah, so I think he said maybe put it down to like 3 or 4, because in the forwards it makes a massive difference.
And it would break it up more because the defenses are solid, because there's like 3 fresh players somewhere, and it just would halt the game because the players are tired. I got a zap, James. I got one question from someone in the Facebook group, and we'll do a question from James. He says, what are your thoughts on wheelchair American football? Teams are starting up in the UK. Do you think that there should be more of a push for rugby? You got a quick one. I've actually got a zap soon, James, so pressure's on.
I don't see why not. I don't know the rules inside and out. I've seen people playing it. So I don't see why not. It'd probably be a little bit of take it from league with the tag, and ultimately you're probably going to have low numbers, but it changes the dynamic of it a little bit. And I think, well, the skills players are going to be basketball players because they're quick. It's just the dexterity maybe is going to be a bit better, because having to do this and looking for a ball as opposed to it being side on to you, when it's coming. I'd see that the only difference, but I don't see why not. Why it wouldn't catch on. Obviously, American football's caught on in this country. It's not as popular as the United States, but it's another. I think when it comes to sport, it's another opportunity for somebody to try something different.
Mm-hmm. Sweet. If anything else, James, just comment again, and I'll ask James when we talk on our little partnership calls. Wicked, James. I'm gonna have to run, but that's been a wicked overview. More detail on you and the rugby. If anyone wants to get hold of you, what would be the best place and how to do it?
I'd say go through my podcast, the Mindset Athlete podcast, which you can listen to on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Amazon, or anywhere that you listen to podcasts.
There we go. So if you're a podcast fan, if you're listening to this, I'm sure you are, jump over to James's. I'm sure he's got more Olympians and higher athletes than me on there. Sweet. Okay, I'm going to bounce then. So cheers, guys. If you're watching on the Facebook video, comment below if you have questions later on. Yeah, have a good day. Cheers, James. And I'll see you guys soon.